Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned lifestyle and high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or have had a big setback? And how do we adjust quickly when life throws us major curveballs? On this podcast, I do what I do best, taking complicated information that is relevant to us now and breaking it down simply with actionable steps you can implement to level up your own life. I also regularly interview some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on the planet who at their worst learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up, creating everything from nothing. If you are new here, I encourage you to go back and listen from episode 1 for the full transformative experience. Growing up with entrepreneur parents, Jennifer loved to perform and she loved playing with cash registers. She knew she wanted to be an entrepreneur and make a lot of money helping people, but she had a lot of limiting beliefs. After all, she was dyslexic, hated writing, was insecure around school, and viewed herself as a terrible student. After launching an online fitness business as a side hustle that was not initially working, she connected the dots that she needed to learn how to enter conversations that are actually going on in the prospects' minds first, meet them there in that conversation, and make them feel totally understood. When she figured that out, her passion emerged: copywriting. She would become a master at this and her business started converting. In fact, it converted so well that she started attracting other entrepreneurs that wanted her help. Now today, Jennifer Hudye is the founder and CEO of Conscious Copy and Company, one of the top copywriting companies in the digital marketing world, where they help entrepreneurs communicate their vision and message in a way that inspires people to take action. Her clients have included household names like Strategic Coach, Joe Polish, JJ Virgin, Bulletproof Coffee, Brendan Bouchard, Cameron Harold, and many other guests even that have been on this show here. Join in today and learn exactly how Jennifer Hudye leveled up and created everything from nothing. Today, I've got my friend Jennifer Hudye, who is a messaging expert and founder of Conscious Copy. And Jennifer, I've been waiting to do this so long with you. So thanks for being here and talking with me today. I can't wait to dive into your story.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I asked Jennifer before we started, I said, if I was just meeting you for the first time, and I didn't know you yet. And I said, what do you do? Which is a question so many like to ask new people. I said, what do you do? And she just said, I would say I'm a messaging expert and I help people tell their story. And what a powerful thing that you do. But I'm assuming that's not something you were always strong at. That wasn't your background?
Not even close. Not even close.
Tell me more about that. Like, who were you before? Who were you what did you want to be when you grew up as a kid? Who were you?
Well, what I wanted to be when I was a kid, what's funny is I loved performing. I loved microphones and stages, and I loved cash registers. Oh. And so I do think it's very ironic that I basically write words that make a lot of money for a living.
That is kind of funny, actually.
But a bit about my story. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. It's in my blood. My whole lineage is entrepreneurs. And I grew up in Saskatchewan, Canada. And when I went to college, I went to Arizona State. And when I was in college, I did a mentorship with a guy named Harvey McKay. He wrote the book Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive, which is he's kind of known as a business mogul. And it was actually one of my management professors who came up to me, and I was getting a C in his class because I always really struggled in school. And he was like, hey, I see you trying really hard, but you're just not fit for school. and he's like, but I want to introduce you to someone who I think will really mentor you. And this can be a really great opportunity. And he introduced me to Harvey. And, so I was a mentee with him, and he went and spoke at a Brendan Bouchard event. And I would go with him to his different speaking engagements. And I went to this Brendan Bouchard event, and my whole world was just opened up and realizing that there's this personal development, marketing, world that is very different than college, where I could start a business with like not a whole lot of resources and be able to grow it, because I was really trying to figure out, in college, I knew I wanted to start my own business, but of my what's next, but I was like trying to figure out exactly what that looked like. And I was actually a group fitness instructor and a personal trainer at the time as well in college. And so I was like, I'm going to build an online business supporting millennial women with their fitness. Yeah.
Very different than what you do now. Yeah.
Yeah. And through that, like, I was like so excited. There's that quote by, I think it's Alex Mandossian, where he's like, there's nothing like watching a person enthusiastically run in the wrong direction. And that was basically me when I started my business. I was like, oh yeah, I got to build this course. And so I just started obsessing on building the course with the fancy videos and the PDFs and the logo. And I needed a website. And I spent months and months and, a lot of money building out this course, and the idea of marketing
for fitness, like, for millennials. That was the course you're building. Okay.
Yeah. And then like the idea of marketing, it was like an afterthought. And so when I went to go launch it, it completely flopped.
So, it's so interesting because with my business coaching clients, that it's so common that they think they've got to have this perfect course, this perfect thing. But there's this whole part they're skipping about, like, am I even attracting the right people? Am I connecting with them? Is there actually a problem they have that I can help solve? It's like this whole skip. Why do you think that is, that people do that?
I think that there's this like narrative around, create a business around your passion, and so much, especially in the online marketing space, it's so much about like, do what you love and build a business around your gifts. And it's like really egocentric. And so then there's people like myself included when I started was like, oh yeah, this is all about me. And like, I'm going to create my marketing and my website and my branding around me. And that just doesn't work. And I learned that really fast. And I was noticing a lot of time pressure for myself because I wanted to graduate college and like be able to just continue whatever business I built full time. I didn't want to go back to Canada. That was like my motivation. And so I was just like, okay, how do I make this thing work? And I actually stumbled upon a podcast where the hosts were talking about this concept that was new to me called direct response marketing and copywriting. And I remember as they were talking about this idea of, you need to enter the conversation that's going on in your prospect's mind. And, the goal is to really have, whoever it is that you're helping feel so understood. It was like everything shifted for me in that moment. And I realized what I was doing wrong.
So why do you think, I have so many questions around that and I want to dig into that. But before we even do that, what do you think got you to the other place first? Because there's a lot of people listening there that are in that other place. Like, my family's entrepreneurs, or my family's doing this. Now I'm supposed to go to college and I'm told I'm not a good student. Like, I'm checking the boxes. I'm doing all the things. What do you think got you to that place first versus this other outside thinking of like personal development and helping people first?
Yeah, well, when I first started, truthfully, one of my biggest motivators was like proving that I could do it on my own. Okay. So I grew up in a really entrepreneurial family, and all of my siblings joined the family business. And it was kind of like this, is Jen going to join the family business or not? And I knew in my heart that I didn't want to. I knew that there was like something else I really wanted to move somewhere too, where nobody really knew who I was. And I just wanted to like create my life on my terms. And so I think so much of a driver for me and really for several years in building my business was this like drive of, I need to prove first to myself that I can do it. And then I need to prove to my family that I can do this. So there was just this like hunger that was always there of, if we like psychoanalyze myself, it was like afraid of failure. Like the last thing I would want to do is say like, hey, okay, I can't make it on my own.
Because what would that have meant if you had failed?
That I didn't have what it took. And And especially growing up in a family where it was just like so, I mean, there's so many gifts that came from just being like hard workers and achievement and getting shit done. That was in my MO. And so the shadow of that, though, was just this like need to achieve.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. And it's so funny because a lot of super successful entrepreneurs, I think they have that underlying story that I've got. And it's powerful in a lot of ways because it drives them, but then it hurts them because they attach it too much to them, to their heart, to them, who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like a couple years into my business, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally building my business around my insecurities.
Wow. So the fitness business that you're building, that one? Or
No, it was when I started my business that I have now.
Ooh. Tell me what you mean by that. Like, what did you connect there?
Yeah. So kind of backing up a bit, like with my fitness business, I ended up growing it into this multi-six-figure side hustle while in college.
So funny, by the way, that I've known you and I had no idea that you had a fitness business beforehand.
Yep. And
side of Jen.
A big part of it though, that helped me to start to gain momentum was like really learning and obsessing on marketing, on messaging, on copy writing. And so for those who aren't familiar with what copywriting is, it's written words that sell. So it's like the words that fill your sales pages, your emails, your website, your webinars, however you're wanting to share that you can actually help people through those written words is copywriting. And I really learned like when I was like, okay, I gotta figure out how to make this business work. So I started learning marketing and messaging and copy. And then that was what really started giving me momentum. And I had so much, even just like limiting beliefs around that because I wasn't a good student in school. I hated to write and I'm dyslexic. And so I'll share that in a moment with my copywriting business. Like I still have so much like imposter syndrome around people paying me a lot of money to write when I like still can't spell words correctly, like the simplest words. But that was really what helped me write the ticket to my future was this idea of copywriting. And so after college, I really started I loved the business aspect of my fitness business, but I was starting to lose passion and desire around teaching fitness and health all day long. Cause I noticed for me, that was kind of my outlet. It was the thing that fueled me. And then because I was doing it every single day, all day for others, the last thing I wanted to do was like go and work out on my own or start.
I can't relate to that at all. I'm just kidding. I can totally relate to that. Totally can relate to that. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I just out of chance, I started having a lot of other people in the industry reach out to me, asking me how I was building out my funnels that were selling my fitness products because they were gaining a lot of momentum. And so on the side here and there, I started doing some like consulting and started helping people write their marketing here and there. And I was loving it. Like it was so much fun for me. It brought me so much joy. And then I remember there was a month where just as this like side gig that felt like the passion project, I looked and I saw that I generated more from that than my fitness business that month working, a quarter of the time. Wow. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm loving this. And this is draining me. Yeah. So it was this shift of stepping into writing full time, and essentially my business that I have now, which is called Conscious Copy, was born.
So there's so many little interesting things you said that I picked up on that I want to ask you more about because I know people listening are struggling with this. One, you mentioned imposter syndrome, and I want to dig a little bit more into that because I feel when somebody's in their true gift and calling, they feel imposter syndrome. I would love to hear your perspective on that and like what it means and how you figured that out or what, like how you get over that.
Yeah. I don't know if you like ever get over it, but one of the things for me that I've really learned is my imposter syndrome really started not being such a loud voice in my head, the more that I help my clients get results. And if I just focus on the results that I'm helping my clients get, then that's like my feedback to be like, see, I'm not an imposter because they're getting these epic results through, through this process or through what I'm supporting them with. But there's also, I heard somewhere, I can't remember who said it, but they're like, most imposters don't think they're imposters. People who have imposter syndrome usually don't have imposter syndrome. So it's almost like this catch-22. But yeah, for me, like one of the biggest things that still comes up is I don't consider myself a writer. And I have a lot of trouble spelling. And so when I would have clients, like some of the clients that we've worked with in the past are like people like Shalene Johnson and Brendan Bouchard and Dean Graziosi and Eben Pagan. It was like all these people that I actually learned copywriting and marketing from. And yeah, I think it's something that's still kind of always there. And I get to do a gut check, but then the more that I just shine the spotlight on my clients, I kind of get over it.
So imposter syndrome is so interesting because it truly does come up when people think they're not good enough. And what my theory around it, and I'm wondering if you think this too, but my theory around it is that it's so natural for us when it's in our strength that we think it's not that challenging for us. So therefore it must be not real because other things in life are challenging or hard work is challenging. That's what I've connected the dots around imposter syndrome. And that changed my relationship with it. I'm wondering if you have any insight around that.
Yeah, that definitely resonates with like when we're a fish swimming in water. It when we're in our natural gifts, typically it does feel easy. And yeah, there's a lot of just like mindset work to do around that when, especially too, when we're like raising our prices or really valuing the results that we can help people with when it does come so easy for us. I think one of the biggest things that, I'm still in like a constant practice with is growing up where hard work was like the number one, the value, and then seeing like, okay, but I've just noticed in my life because there's a lot of times where I'll be working really hard, but as entrepreneurs, we don't get paid for the time that we put in. We get paid for the results that we produce.
Yes.
And so that's always been I'm always trying to look now for more data that proves to me that in my life that the effort that I put in is what are the results that I'm getting from it?
Yes. Yeah, that's really good. Now, it's interesting too, because you mentioned that like growing up and even now you struggle with, like you hated to write, you were insecure around school, you had dyslexia. So you had all these labels like you're dyslexic, you're this, and then you even in college had someone tell you you're not a good student. How did those not stop you from stepping into these gifts? Because those are some pretty heavy, what I call false assumed truths, like these beliefs that are being ingrained in you. How did you shut those up so you could do it anyway?
One of the first things that honestly pops into my mind is my parents. Like growing up, I was like the kid that wanted to do everything. It was like very determined, but kind of like the natural talent was maybe below average, but like my excitement about things would motivate me. And my parents were so supportive in being like, whatever you want to do, just like put your mind to it and you can do it. And so, yeah, I think that was just a belief that I grew up with as a kid, of knowing that for a lot of things that I tried, probably not going to be very good at the beginning. And that's okay, so long that I like put effort in and I focus and I practice. So that was a perfect example with copywriting, because even with that at the beginning, I was terrible at it. But I had, mentors that were like, okay, I want you to write every single day. Like by hand, practice this. If you just follow this, you will get the result. And I did. And I think the more of that, of just training myself that I can be shitty at anything, if I really put my mind to it, I'm going to do it. And being okay with that really awkward beginning where I suck at it.
So Okay, I have like a million questions for you now, but the first one that's coming up for me is, what do you do? Because I'm sure at some time in your life with a client or somebody wasn't happy, like, or they went into blame mode, like, I hired you and this or whatever. How did you stay in your power versus letting the imposter syndrome get to you? Because I think that's another very real thing for people is they recognize it's imposter syndrome. They go for it anyway. They give it their all. And then one person says, you suck, or this is wrong. And they go right back into I should have never done this.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about it like a specific example, and with a client where, it didn't say that the campaign didn't go the way that they wanted to. And I think one of the most important things that I practice that I'm not perfect at by any means is like really separating the actions from like who I am as a person. And it's a practice because I can still notice that come up of like, oh my gosh, I'm a bad person. No, it's like, okay, what my intention was and say what the results were misinterpreted on both sides. And then from there, just a commitment to make it right.
I love that. I love that separation idea, because I do think people, especially when it's their true gift and talent, they tend to tie that with them as a person. Like, so that's where that risk of failure is so great too, because it's like, this is me as a person. So it's hard to not take that personal. So I love that separation.
I think it feels a lot more vulnerable when we're like really in our gifts versus certain skills that we've learned.
For sure. I've had that same epiphany recently. But it's very easy to learn a skill that's not your true gift and put it out there. But when it's your true gift, the risk of failure can feel greater.
You feel so much more exposed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about, like, how did you actually get on the map with this? So like what I'm hearing from you is like, you had your own business, you were doing pretty well with it as a side hustle. You now started attracting other clients that wanted you to do the same. And this is becoming more lucrative, more fun, more in your gifts. But that's not what built you to who you were today. Like, was there like this big opportunity or break? Like, how did you get yourself fully known? Because you own this space now in a lot of ways. Like, your name goes with copywriting now.
Yeah. Yeah. There was definitely a defining moment when I fully stepped into it, and I fully made the decision, like, I'm going to go all in on this moving forward. I had an opportunity to go to a mastermind, which is called Genius Network. I know you and Brooks are familiar with it. And the imposter syndrome that I felt there was like a next level. So some of the people that were at this mastermind were like Dave Asbury of Bulletproof, and, JJ Virgin and Bedros Killian and like Joe Polish and Dan Sullivan. It was like literally all of my idols that I learned from and was listened to on podcasts every single day. And the story, we won't go into it today because it's a little bit long, but the way that I got to this mastermind too was like truly just such a synchronicity. And there was about 50 people in the mastermind, and they were kicking it off by having everyone stand up and share who they are and how they help people. And sorry, Jennifer, were you invited to speak or to go to this mastermind? To just attend. Okay, attend. Got it. Yeah, and to actually help Joe Polish with some marketing. So I wasn't even like a paid attendee for the first one. I was attending to do some work for him. Okay. And so I didn't think that they were going to ask me at all, like me to introduce myself, because it was kind of like working that day. And at the very end of them going around in the circle, Joe called me up and he was like, hey, we'd like you to introduce yourself. And I immediately break out in like full cold sweats. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't prepare for this. I'm terrified. Like, what am I going to say to sound impressive to all these people? Like, I only have one chance to make it right. And I'm so nervous. And so I like quickly wrote up something on this sheet of paper that was going to make me sound like really intelligent. That was my goal. Like they can't find out that maybe I'm not as smart as they think I am. Okay. And I go to read it, and my mind just goes blank. I can't read on what's on the sheet. And I'm like, my name's Jennifer Hudye, and I basically help people like you not try to sleep with your prospects on the first date. And I do that through email marketing.
Okay.
And I thought I was like trying to be funny. And then I gave this like little like, you know, like the gun signs, like, hey.
Yeah. Like I'm super cool.
Yeah. And I thought that I was going to try to be funny, but like nobody laughs and everybody's just kind of like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's cute. And I went back down to my seat and I was like, I blew it. I totally blew it. I just made a fool in front of myself, in front of all of my idols. And so I'm just like sitting there, like rerunning all of the different other things that I could have said. And at the break, the weirdest thing happened. So I at the break, I'm like trying to avoid making eye contact with everyone. And there's like a line of 10 people that come up to me.
Wow.
And like, it's like Dave Asbury and Bedros Killian. And they're all like, hey, like, how do you work? Can we grab your card? Can we, book us a call with you? We'd love to learn, we need help with copywriting. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. And that was a really defining moment for me. One, because I realized like, I think the goofiness and the authenticity of myself was a lot more impactful than me trying to sound really smart. Mm-hmm. But then two, just getting to connect with a lot of those, a lot of those people really, and starting to do work for a lot of them really put me on the map.
Wow. What a powerful, interesting story. I mean, so many little lessons in that. Like one, just the power of being in a mastermind, like with who's in the room, because had you not been invited there or participated in that or been there, you wouldn't have had the instant respect from people. And that's a powerful case for why people should be in a mastermind, because you're surrounding yourself with that instant network. But two, just about this thought of over preparing and what the perfect script. And like, you just went up and you just were yourself and it attracted people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I think that was one of the biggest aha moments for me. Still to this day, I anchor into that moment of remembering that being myself is a lot more powerful and effective than trying to be what I think I should be.
Yeah.
And that still is like mind bendy for me.
So when that first, I'm just trying to be in your brain in the moment when you've got all these idols coming up to you and they're like, well, how do you work? What do you do? Because instantly I'm assuming the conversation then goes to, well, how do I even work with them? What do I say? What do I charge? Do I really know this? Like, how did you stop that racket from going on? And did you start working with them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the biggest lessons that I still believe was a key shift, or not even a shift, just like an up level that has helped me to create the results that I've been able to create in my business over the last 5 years, is I just focused on how can I be part of these people's success story? How can I help them be as successful as possible? And so even when having those conversations with these people who are my idols, I'm like, this isn't about me. Like, this is super cool, but this is about how can I help them? And a big part of it early on too was just like transparency, where I remember doing, a campaign for a bigger name, and they're like, can you do this? And I'm like, the truth is I haven't done this exactly, but I can promise you that I will give it my all to do this, and that I will focus on, what's the result that you want? What would success look like? Yeah. And I'm going to get scrappy and I'm going to make it happen. So a lot of it was just like transparently sharing the areas where like, hey, I'm not downplaying myself, but also being like, this is new to me. I'm not going to pretend like I know how to do this new thing, but I promise I'm going to give it my all.
So good. So good. So jumping in, and how did you know like how to price that initially? Because you're coming in kind of scrappy, like you've got some clients, but you've not worked with these big names. A lot of people, I think what they do is they start comparing like, well, this is what so-and-so charges. How did you figure that out? Like, how did you know right away, like, this is what I should charge for this project?
Well, I think at the beginning, like many, I mean, I didn't price myself super high because I felt like I was like in this like learning
Yes.
phase. One of the things that I have learned over time as far as pricing is really two questions. One is, for whatever price that I choose, does it feel like I'm going to be able to show up fully and be excited about this versus it feeling kind of like a wet blanket?
Oh, that's such a good question to ask. Yeah.
Because even now, like what I used to price certain things at, if I price them the same right now, and I'm, you know, depending how much work I do or it's my team, it's like, is this fueling? Am I going to be able to show up really excited, prep, and be like, yes? Or is it going to be like, ugh, I kind of feel like I'm being undervalued? Because we know that we show up a bit differently when we're undervaluing ourselves.
Jennifer, this is so important because I hear it too many times from clients or people in general where they'll say, well, I feel like my time is this, and for me to be excited and show up, it should be this. However, the market's only charging that. But I think that's such a dangerous trap to go down because then you are not showing up fully and you get resentful.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're not serving in the capacity that you really can be.
Yeah.
And then the second thing too is really looking at, okay, for what I charge, what is the upside for the client? Like I knew with some of our clients, you know, I was able to charge, I guess, what other people would look as a lot, but I knew that, okay, when we help them implement this, the results that they're going to get in their business,
yes,
you know, are 10x, 100x that over time. And so really thinking about what is the result that the client's going to get. And then my friend Joe Polish says, you know, you're really selling money at a discount. When you're in like business coaching or, you know, what I do as far as marketing, it's like we're selling money at a discount.
Yeah. Wow.
But one other thing that I think was really helpful for me just on this path over the last 5 years of conscious copy is really staying in my lane. Like I actually don't attend like copywriting conferences. I don't study what are other copywriters charging. I've never really done that. And I think that's been very helpful because I've just stayed in my lane and the value that my team and I deliver.
Yeah.
So even a couple of years ago, I was talking with another, you know, top copywriter. He's one of the top copywriters in the world. And he was asking me what I charge. And he's like, oh my gosh, wow. Like, you know, it took so-and-so to do, you know, start charging that much and so-and-so this. And I remember thinking like, I'm glad I didn't know that.
Yeah. You know,
because I probably would have created limitations for myself.
I didn't even really know that's why I was doing it until you just said it, but I'm the same way, at least when it comes to like the fat loss, nutrition, fitness. I've never attended or networked with that or followed or looked at what other people charge for their programs. It was a distraction to me because I did that same thing with my fitness and nutrition business. So I totally appreciate that. I think we get in our heads when we see what somebody else is doing. And the bottom line is we don't even know their whole story. We don't know if they like what they're doing. We don't know if they're good at what they're doing. We don't know if they're getting their clients results. We don't know. So to compare is interesting there. So I'm imagining at some point you couldn't do all this yourself. So you were probably writing it, talking with the client, doing everything yourself. You were also doing this with dyslexia, with your own challenges there. At what point did you think, okay, now it's time to get help? And how did you figure out where you needed help?
The first hire I had immediately was an editor to edit all of my copy before sending it to clients. But I started growing a team pretty quickly. So probably within 6 months or less even than 6 months of my copywriting business back in 2015, I hired first a virtual assistant to really help me. And I looked at what are all of the things that I'm doing that don't really require my skill set or my expertise or my gifts. And I just started delegating as much as possible to her. And then the next thing I delegated out was a lot of the management between the clients of like sending them specific deadlines and that sort of thing, because I knew it would take a bit to find and train someone in my copy process. So I was always looking at, okay, what are the things that I could delegate off my plate that don't require that I can wrap systems around.
So like a project manager was your next step. So a virtual assistant first, and then like a project manager, like who can have this correspondence. I like that way of thinking, because I think sometimes people tend to try to delegate their core skill first, and that's the wrong way. Instead, you were just saying, what are the distractions? What are the things that somebody else could take off my plate so I can focus on my core skills?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those were the first ones. And then from there, once I started getting more and more projects, I hired on copywriters, but then it was, a longer, because I have a very specific method, training them in the method, and then still always, reviewing their work was the next step. And then eventually, like for me, I always knew my goal is to be like a copywriter, entrepreneur. And so then I remember a business coach telling me, maybe a year into my business, he was like, you got to focus 80% of your business on generating new revenue. So that was a switch that flipped for me, where I was like, okay, I got to focus on sales. I got to focus on marketing. So how do I make sure that the processes are in place so that I can do that?
Got it. Because a lot of people don't put the process in place, and then they end up working in their business that they don't have the time to work on the 80% to get that 80% time to get the new prospect, because they're thinking, I don't have a system in place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The systems and quality control. And especially for my type of personality, where there's parts of me that really love control. It's super important for me to know like that quality control is there's cross-checking in place, so that it's up to the standard that I have.
So had you not gone to Genius Network, had you not met those people, do you think you'd be where you were right now? Like, what would you have, how would this have still happened for you?
I definitely believe it would have, in some sort of different way. It may have looked a little bit different. And truthfully, I always wonder too, I'm like, would I have grown so quickly? Because a big part of that too was like, once that happened, who I had to become was like from zero, well, say like if I was playing at a certain level in my life, I had to show up so much bigger. And the self-image of myself needed to grow so quickly. And so I think that definitely sped up my growth process. But I know that, I always had a very clear vision of where I wanted to go. It probably would have just happened a different way.
Now, you're a huge fan, and I know this personally about you, and I know this, and I'm wondering if you can share some insight on this. You're a huge fan now of coaching. Like, you're constantly working with a coach or a mentor. You're always in masterminds. You do a lot of personal development. Was that all stuff you've done always, or was that because of this? And can you speak into the importance or what you've learned about that?
So I had a unique experience too of growing up. My dad got into personal development when I was younger. And so he would seed certain things to me. And when I was younger, I kind of had shut it off, where I was just like, oh, I don't want to, I wasn't super interested in it.
Yeah.
But, he taught me like the power. He'd always say things like, if you tell yourself something 7 times, your mind's going to start to believe it. And, or like the power of like setting a clear intention or outcome that you want for whatever you're stepping into, the importance of like a positive attitude and all of that. But it was actually when I was in college and I got the mentorship with Harvey McKay, one of the projects that I had was with one of his business partners, where I would read books. They started this like book transcribing or book recap subscription, and I was the book recapper. And up until that point too, I hated reading. Like in high school, I hated reading. I hated reading books. until I discovered personal development books. And so they said for every book that you read and recap into the top 3 takeaways from the book, and then they would go take it and they would record it, and then it was a subscription service, you would get paid I think it was like $100 or $125.
Okay.
And so I was in college. I was like, cool. So basically the faster I read, the more I do these recaps, the more money I make. And so that's what really got me in. And it was all these personal development and business books. So that really set it off for me, where I was like, there's this whole world that I became so fascinated in. But then really when I started to attend these personal development events, that's when I was like, it was game over, where I just became obsessed with it, of really realizing that the only thing in the way between me and whatever I want is myself. And so the more that I can just overcome any limiting beliefs or paradigms.
So I know that you're not a personal development coach, or that's not your thing, but I'm curious if you could speak a little into this, because I find a lot of times what's in people's gaps between who they are right now and where they want to go is that accountability of self. And what I mean by that is, it's not the gap of I need to work harder, I need to learn more. It's not a victim mentality, but it's this working to upgrade themselves to that 2.0 version, which is basically what you're saying you did. You said, I had to think, who do I need to become? Can you speak a little bit into that side of it? Like what personal development has actually done for you, and how that actually translates into increased business and better awareness there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think of that saying, I don't know who said it, where it's like, I don't have business problems, I just have personal problems that show up in my business.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so good.
And that's been truth for me. I've studied a lot with Mary Morrissey, which I know has been on your show.
Love her.
And just this idea that it's like an inside out job, where whatever we want in the 3D realm is there for us, but we just need to become a match for it internally. And so for me, the best investment that I can make, and that I've made over the last several years, is just that inner work that I got to do to become a match to what it is that I want. So I have been, I've done a lot of different leadership trainings. I'm always working with different coaches. I always have a business coach, a mindset or personal development coach, a health coach, because I just know that that is the most efficient, effective way for me to get the results that I want.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's so good. All right. I want to switch over a little bit to, because thanks for answering all those questions about how you became who you are. I want to switch a little bit over to that copy and that story piece, because I think this is also lacking in a lot of people's businesses and brands. Can you speak a little into and I know this is a very general question, so I don't know how general we can be here, but what are the things that you see that people do wrong, and what are some kind of best practices that would help people?
Yeah. So there's a couple key things that I see over and over again for entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, experts who want to get their product, their service, whatever it is that they sell, into the hands of more people. The very first one is shining the spotlight on yourself instead of your ideal client. So there's a quote by, I believe it's Dale Carnegie, which is, the goal isn't for people to understand you, the goal is for them to feel understood. And I've taken that quote and I've kind of massaged it into marketing, which is, the goal of content is for people to understand you. The goal of copy is for people to feel understood.
So good. I love that. I just wrote that down. So the goal of content is for them to understand you.
Yeah. And the goal of copy, which is written words to sell, is for them to feel really understood. So if you want to inspire someone into action, you gotta first make them feel understood. You gotta really understand their world, what they're going through, what their pain points are, what their objections are, and where it is that they want to go. And then only then can you really share with them that you have a solution for them. So really go ahead and look at on your website, how many times are you saying like, I, me, this is what we're all
Yes.
about, versus like, hey, are you struggling with this? Do you have challenges with this? And really just obsessing on how can you just help that person
Yes.
get to where they want to go.
Yeah, it's so funny because I think there's some people that do this so well, and then some people that obviously don't do it well. But if you really dig, even the people that look the most aspirational and together, I think that people see themselves in them. They're seeing like, I can become that, or I feel you understand me and I can achieve that. And it's confusing because I think someone that doesn't understand this yet, they just look at these people and they're like, well, they're doing this, so I should do this too. But they're missing that key component you just said about, is the client feeling seen, heard, and understood?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing when it comes to messaging that I see. Just even like massive companies will trip up on this. And then the second thing is kind of playing off of that, is really making sure that you're using that person's language. So much of messaging isn't like inspirative, creative angles, that just come from creativity. It truly is a mirror to your ideal client, shining back to them what it is that they say that they want. So if your ideal client is saying, maybe you're helping them with their health,
Sure.
are they saying, oh, I want to heal my microbiome, although that's what you help them with? Or are they saying like, hey, I really want to get rid of this brain fog. I want to wake up more energized. I want to be able to fit in my old jeans again. They're like, paint the picture of the situations that they're actually in.
So good. That was such a breakthrough I had, by the way, with fitness and fat loss years. And it's why I believe my business was successful, is I would take complicated concepts and simplify it. And then what would happen is trainers or nutritionists or all these other experts would come to me like, well, I don't understand why you're doing so well, because you're not talking in all this scientific gibberish. And I thought that's the exact reason I am doing well, is because I'm taking these complicated things and I'm breaking it down into what people are actually feeling or experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a powerful lesson for me. Do you feel that everyone should hire a copywriter, or should they learn this skill first and then look out for that? And can everyone learn this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question that I get a lot, because most people just want to delegate it out.
Yeah.
But I really believe that nobody knows your message like you do. And until you really know your message and you know how to communicate to your ideal client and, share your offers, until you know that, it's not a good idea to hire a copywriter.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be able to translate a message that isn't clear to begin with. And that's a mistake that I see a lot of people make, is they're just trying to hire the copywriter to fix this problem, when really there's another core problem underneath of that needs to get solved first. Like they're there to translate the words, but yeah, if you're not clear of your message, it's going to be really challenging.
So good. I can't tell you how many people ask me if I hire a copywriter who I've worked with. And I would say that exact same answer. It is my wording, my messaging. And then I've worked with copywriters to help improve it sometimes. But it doesn't work when I've just hired a copywriter I've had flops around that if I wasn't clear on where I was going first.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. This has been so valuable. If somebody wants to learn more, like what does your business do? Like, can people learn how to do this from you, or can they hire your team? Like how do they learn more from you?
Yeah. The way that we work at Conscious Copy is, we used to be an agency where we would actually write copy for our clients. And over the last couple years, we've really shifted to being a training company. So we help entrepreneurs in being able to communicate their message and then write copy that connects and converts. We do that through online courses. We do that through really interactive workshops. And then we do have some programs as well where our team is actually in your corner, reviewing your copy and your messaging, giving you real-time feedback before you ever go and launch. And that's what we just find that we can help so many more entrepreneurs in that way.
I love that.
The secret sauce.
Yeah. You teach them how to do it, and then there's no stopping. I love that. Oh, this is so great. Jennifer, where can they find you? Where are you most visible? What's your website? Where do you want them following you and looking for more?
You can check me out at consciouscopy.co. So it's consciouscopy.co, not .com. There's a hub there with some great trainings and more about us and our business. And then I'm slowly getting in the rhythm of Instagram. So I'm at Jen Hudye, JENNHUDYE.
And to find her easier, you all, if you go to my Instagram, you can go to where I follow and then look up her name there. So that's a really quick way to find her. Thank you so much for being here today, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen in as my guest today. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with friends and on social media. I don't advertise this show, so I rely on word of mouth and reviews to get it out in the world. The biggest thank you that you can give me is leaving me a review, and a nice one, I hope, by the way. This is how others find these episodes. If you do leave me a review, be sure to message me at support@nataliejillfitness.com with a screenshot of your review, because I would love to send you a free digital download of my DSR journal as a thank you. And please don't forget to connect with me on social media at Natalie Jill Fit on Instagram and Facebook.